Welcome to the BlockNation Crypto Podcast, the most entertaining podcast in crypto. My name is Drew Griffin. In this episode, I interview two members of the Komodo team, Jason and All Right. We discuss the Komodo platform, their decentralized exchange, how users can create customized blockchains, and the atomic swap system. I hope you enjoy this episode. Please leave me your comments and questions. I do have to give full disclosure. I am a holder of Komodo, but that doesn't prevent me from thinking this is one of the top projects in crypto. I hope you enjoy. Thanks for listening. Okay, thanks for listening to the BlockNation podcast. I'm in with All Right and Jason from the Komodo team.
Hey guys.
You want to say what's up? Hey, and we're basically going to give an entire breakdown of the Komodo project. It's been around for several years. What year did you say the Komodo started?
Well, Komodo, ICO'd in 2016. However, the work that was, that led up to the creation of Komodo started all the way back in 2014, back on the NXT platform, and concurrently Bitcoin Dark as well. And then it just evolved from there.
So it's one of the older projects in the space.
Oh yes, definitely. Many of the team members have been around since Bitcoin was $100 or lower. So we've seen the entire industry grow up from a seed to a mighty tree. So it's quite interesting how much has changed in a few short years that we've been around.
Well, so for people listening, if you had to just give an elevator pitch of what is Komodo, what would you say to them?
Okay, so Komodo, I would personally say Komodo is a multi-chain ecosystem that primarily focuses on developer autonomy and adapting technologies to be blockchain compatible. It allows people to come and develop on their own blockchain, thereby circumventing all the potential hassles that businesses and developers can run into when building on a third-party platform, such as increasing gas fees or arbitrary consensus rule changes or not considering backwards compatibility, which personally, Komodo, we have experienced this in the past, and that's why we made it a priority to make sure that other developers who work with us do not suffer the same ill effects.
So one way of saying it, if I had a business and I want to create my own blockchain, I could use the Komodo platform.
Correct. Yes, you would. In the Komodo platform, you would be able to spawn your own runtime fork, so it's your own independent chain. So this is very different than like Ethereum, where you're just creating a token and don't have to worry about the consensus mechanisms. So there is a little bit more overhead with having your own chain. However, in certain situations, as we've seen like on platforms like Ethereum, where there is a overwhelming demand for the platform and it grinds to a halt. And that's not a situation that a business wants to be in. If it has to process orders or if its program is out there to be making money, it can't just be sitting stagnant because of network congestion. Yeah. So in Komodo, by having your own blockchain, you severely limit that. And as well, if you would need more transaction capacity, we have the capability of adding side chains to these blockchains in the form of a cluster. So it is essentially infinitely scalable as long as you have the hardware to keep running more and more chains to meet your demands.
Yeah, I remember in 2018, a lot of the Ethereum network just got so bottlenecked, and people, a lot of people were trying to put out ICOs and they couldn't, make transactions happen just because of the amount of usage on that network. And so what you're saying is, as a business, I can avoid that by using your platform to create a custom blockchain based on whatever business solution I need.
Yes, correct.
Awesome.
So like with the Ethereum congestion, that was only from like 2 or 3 dApps. So like if you're building something on Ethereum, like a handful of like businesses that are spamming the chain will negatively impact your business, even if you have nothing to do with them. But with like an asset chain, it's just your own blockchain. You have a lot more freedom to do what you need.
And obviously, if it's your own blockchain, you can regulate, who uses it because it's probably primarily for your business.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be for a business, but yeah, you can, the devs of the chain are pretty much in full control of it. Like they can, if they want a centralized solution, they can do that. If they want a decentralized solution, they can do that as well.
Well, what are some non-business use cases for it?
So we have like maybe like 40 or so asset chains right now. One would be like, are you familiar with R Pirate?
No, I'm not.
So that's like Z transaction only asset chain. So basically it's like forced privacy. It's like ZK Snark's technology, like Zcash, but it's similar to Monero in that every transaction must be shielded. So there's like no metadata on the chain, or very little. Like the only metadata on the chain is like the mining transactions. But like that's not a business. That's more of a decentralized project. And there's plenty others like that.
And so it really has a lot of privacy focus, or you could implement privacy focus in your own custom chain.
Yeah.
Yes, and there are other projects that are more personal based as well. One of the ones that I thought was pretty novel was called Dragonhound, which where one of our developers was geolocating, using GPS to track his dog and where he traveled around the neighborhood, and then record that data on the blockchain. And he would be able to look it up on the Explorer and see, the paths through the woods or streets where his dog traveled. And it would, he had a little map and stuff too that would ping. And so there are applications that are non-business related that blockchain is good for. Games as well. Just a couple months back, we released re-released, I suppose, the classic of called Rogue, which is a 1980s computer game. Now, this game actually, if you're not familiar with it, led to the entire genre of games to be developed. If you're familiar with Diablo, or so Diablo is like a more modern form of what Rogue is, a dungeon crawling adventure type thing. And the great benefit about putting blockchain or Rogue on the blockchain, or games on the blockchain in general, is that you're able to validate gameplay through traditional consensus mechanisms. So what this means is that if you were like having a tournament, a gaming tournament, and if everyone's all spread out around the world, you don't have a way of catching somebody if they're cheating or not. The blockchain network itself will every node on the network will replay the game to make sure that all the keystrokes were legitimate, that you're not using some sort of hack or some sort of trick to fool the system. So there are blockchain projects that are being developed in our ecosystem that are more for fun. However, these things can be developed into a business model as well. Like with Rogue, the player data, so your save file, essentially, if you're familiar with gaming, the file that you saved, you can actually trade that as a non-fungible token. So you can actually sell your saved game to somebody else.
Yeah, I had a buddy of mine who would do that. He would build up his character to whatever level, then he would actually sell it online with all his armor or gear that he would collect through the dungeons and all that. Yeah,
the actual Rogue token is the in-game currency of the game. So like you get like I guess you could call it the mining. Like to mine Rogue, you play the game. Again, you receive Rogue tokens in return. So that's like a little cool non-businessy thing. But we do have there is a project starting, or it started recently a couple months ago, that's their business model is to release blockchain games. It's called a Commodore 64.
Are they releasing all the old 64 games? Because I will jump on that immediately if they are.
I'm not really sure what they're releasing. I've seen some demos and stuff, but like I think that it's not like as old school looking as you might think. Like if you look at Rogue, like you look at it and you go, oh, this is like very old school, I guess the best way to put it. But like I've seen the demos for the Commodore games are like you wouldn't even realize it's a blockchain based game while you're playing it.
I mean, and one of the things a lot of people are talking about is gaming is going to be one of the keys to adoption in the blockchain industry, and I can see why, just for a couple of reasons what you were talking about. Well, with a customized blockchain, so how difficult, if you don't have a lot of familiarity with developing, how difficult would it be to create your own custom blockchain? And is Komodo doing things to make it a little bit more user friendly for those that aren't too familiar with developing?
So right now, if you're familiar with like using a shell, like a terminal, like it's dead simple. Like it's like very hard to mess up, honestly, like starting a new chain. But we also have Komodo's coming out with something called Chain Lizard, which will be like a service that will start it for you, host all the infrastructure on AWS, and you really have to know. You don't need to know really anything about blockchain development, and you can get a chain up and running within like minutes.
Oh, that's cool. So on the user experience side, what would that look like? Would it be kind of drag and drop? Do you have to actually I'm trying to think of the best way to word this. Like if someone gets on WordPress and they create like a WordPress website, they don't need to know anything about HTML, PHP. They can just kind of customize it because of how that CRM set up. Is that similar to the platform you're talking about?
Yeah, that would be like Chain Lizard. Chain Lizard has like a really nice UI. Like it's kind of just like pick and place what you want.
Okay, that's sweet. And I could really see stuff like that taking off, especially as we start seeing an increase in adoption, because the most people who use these blockchain stuff probably aren't going to know a whole lot on the development side from it. So the easier it gets for them, the easier it's going to be to make mass adopted.
Yeah, so like the setting up the blockchain layer might be, I think like that's it's like it can limit someone who doesn't really care about the consensus algorithm and stuff.
Yeah.
Like they just want to get a blockchain running, and they just want say to use oracles or something on it, or just have a token, but they don't want to be encumbered by other projects, like the example I gave earlier with Ethereum.
Yeah.
Like, so you don't need to know much about blockchain development, but it helps. But like if you're at all familiar with like using a terminal, like you would have no problem deving a Komodo asset chain. And then that's right now. Like with Chain Lizard, like you'll have no problem at all. Like it's very, very user friendly.
Is Chain Lizard up and running at this moment, or is that
No,
something coming out in the future?
In the future, yeah.
Do y'all have a date set on that?
Jason,
No, currently we do not have a date set on it. It will, the release of Chain Lizard will be part of the rebranding process. So we are hoping to publicly just show it off later this year.
But you're expecting it to come out sometime this year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we released a teaser video not too long ago about what it would look like. From my understanding, at least from talking with the devs, that it's coming along pretty well. So yes, it should be fully operational sometime at the end of this year.
I mean, I like it. Anything people don't have to have a big understanding on, they can get on there and do it. I mean, that's going to be awesome. And to me, with blockchain, the applications is unlimited, and the stuff that we could use it for, we don't even know yet.
Well, yes, and one of the big benefits about using Komodo to create your own blockchain is the access to modules that are highly advanced that you would normally need a developer to code, and you can just program them in with a simple one line of command into your blockchain, and so that makes it very user friendly for businesses and developers to hop on.
Okay, well, is your platform still going to be able to use atomic swaps?
Yeah. We have right now we're testing our really the second iteration of BarterDex. Like you could still use BarterDex right now, but we found some like limitations in it, and we found that it wasn't very user friendly. So it's kind of getting like a full rewrite right now. But yeah, like I think that's slated for towards the end of the year as well. And so we'll have the mobile DEX along with a desktop app.
And so with BarterDex, I can make trades across blockchains without having a trading pair. Is that correct?
What do you mean by without?
So if I go to exchange, and I want to buy, let's say, I don't know, Ethereum, I could. I have to have a trading pair with that. Or let me give a different example. Let's say I want to buy XRP. I got to have a trading pair of Ethereum, Bitcoin. My understanding of atomic swaps, I can trade with anybody on the exchange, even though those two don't have necessarily a pre-existing trading pair.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. You can match any two coins can be paired up together. So yes, you don't have to. You're not forced to go through Bitcoin or through Tether or through Ethereum to get the coin that you want.
So does a blockchain have to have some existing code for the atomic swap to work on your platform, or can you do it with pretty much any blockchain out there?
It requires something called hash time locks, but basically any Bitcoin fork will have that by now.
Okay.
Like that was introduced in like 2013, I think, as well as we have any Ethereum token or Ethereum itself can be traded against any Bitcoin fork with CLTV is what the feature's called. But like basically any modern blockchain will have that. So I think we did like some stats and we found like it was like 98% of all blockchains that existed were supported.
So I could essentially make an ERC20 token on Ethereum and trade it for Bitcoin on BarterDex.
Yeah.
Dang. See, that's a sweet invention to me. Especially as, we start moving to this digital age where everyone, can make their own token for whatever reason. I mean, that's big in my opinion.
Oh yes, BarterDex will allow trading of multiple things. Even in the future, we were discussing about trading like non-fungible tokens as well. And like the player data that we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
The biggest benefit of BarterDex though is that you hold your own coins. You control the private keys, and as we've seen through the dozens of exchange hacks where hundreds of millions of dollars have been stolen, and then the users of those exchanges are forced to pay the price through socialized losses. With BarterDex, that doesn't happen. There is no massive, central exchange that's holding all the coins. There's no KYC AML process because you yourself are the exchange. It's a straight peer-to-peer, no middleman. Even the order matching is done straight peer-to-peer. There is no centralized source like a blockchain or master nodes that compile the order books. All the order books are compiled locally. So it is a truly fully decentralized mechanism for peer-to-peer trading.
And so how do the trades pair up? Do you just put it in the order book, and if someone interested in that token, they can make an exchange, or how does all that work?
Yeah, it's just similar to like using a SEX or a centralized exchange. Like you just place like you would see like a normal looking order book, and you would say, oh, I want to buy that order, or I want to place an order. It's pretty simple.
So when I put in a sell order, do I specify what coin I want to trade it for, or what token I want to trade it for?
Yeah, and
Okay.
another thing that's interesting is that you can place, say if you have one Bitcoin, you can place orders on 10 different pairs for that single Bitcoin, and then when it's filled, it will pull the orders from every other pair.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I don't think that's something like any other exchange really supports.
So how do I specify what token or coin I want to trade it for? Do I, or do you have just a list of everything on there, or do I have to put in some sort of code, or what do I have to do on that end?
So to add a coin to BarterDex, like the Komodo team itself, we manage a repo that's just like, to add a new coin, you really basically just have to add like a single line of code, but like you could do that yourself. Like if you don't want to use our repo, you could still add your coin to BarterDex and have nothing to do with us. So like we're not really like controlling listings or anything. Anyone can list anything they want on it.
So Barter, go ahead.
And for the user, the average user, to just choose what coins they want. It's as simple as a drag and drop menu that you can, choose what, orders you want to place inside the client. So it's pretty user friendly in terms of setting orders.
I've never used it. I think I'm definitely going to have to check it out, because I remember I read about it, because I searched y'all's project really, really hard, probably about 8 months ago. And I remember reading about the BarterDex. I was like, damn, this is an awesome idea. But I never really checked it out and got on there. But it sounds like a completely decentralized exchange. And you're saying that you don't put any risk of exposing your private keys when you use this exchange. Is that correct?
Yep. There's no, like, you own your coins at every point of the process. And like the term atomic comes from either it happens or it doesn't happen. So right. If the swap fails in any way, 100%, you'll always get your coins back.
Yeah, I mean, the exchanges, that happens like every month. You see a major exchange hack, and it's just unfortunate. People are losing millions of dollars, like you were saying, just from keeping their money on the centralized exchanges, and just people getting on there and hacking them.
Yeah, they're like huge honeypots. Like,
well, it's
a
like
big
that
pile of money sitting there waiting for a hacker to come and take it.
It's like that Quadriga exchange where they lose like $150 million of assets just from it being centralized and controlled by one person.
Yeah, and the guy supposedly died and didn't leave the keys to anybody. And
yeah, that's a crazy mess right there. Well, let me ask you guys this. So this has always been a problem in the blockchain industry is, transparency. So what are you guys doing to kind of stay more transparent with the crypto community?
Okay, so we have several initiatives out right now that are, to keep the community abreast of what we're doing. So currently we have a few newsletters every week that go out. One on Tuesday called Tech Tuesday that catches people up with the technological developments, and also 5 Bullet Friday, which is a more general newsletter that goes out that covers things dealing with business, marketing, and also some of the tech advancements. We also have a monthly roundup, and currently we do a yearly report as well. That to sum up everything that went on during the year, as in. Excuse me. In other ways, we're making efforts with transparency is that the funds that are used for delayed proof of work and stuff, they're on the blockchain. You can look at the address and see, how things are being spent and what's the status of what was collected and so on.
You're talking about from your ICO, correct?
Correct. Yes.
And that's awesome right there, because I rarely see an ICO project that, shows where their funds are going. Now, a lot of them probably don't show it because people would be pissed if they saw where they were going, but putting
Yeah.
that.
I think people would, might be a little bit angry if they're not familiar with the blockchain world, but it's very pay to play here, exchange listings, media coverage, and stuff. So I hope people will give projects some sort of leniency regarding that, because it's just the nature of the beast when in this field.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's we try to be as open as possible with people. We don't itemize every single thing, but we do let them know. People know what we spend.
Well, I think that's the main part. Letting people know what you're spending the investor money on, and as long as it's out there and people can see it, to me that's fine. A lot of these projects, these other ICO projects, they just blew through money. I think it was like XEM spent like $60 million or something just on marketing. And all of a sudden they're out of funds, and they're, early investors had no idea what they were spending money on. But, if you're putting it out there for people, that's awesome. So that they can see it and they know. And like you're saying, you got to spend a lot of money to get this thing mass adopted. And that's just the way it goes. It's just the way the beast is right now. Well, can we talk about staking a little bit? So people can earn Komodo from staking their coins. And how much can they make, and how can they do that?
It's not quite staking. It's kind of like a unique mechanism. It's called active user rewards. So basically, when you send your coins, it's possible for you to receive a small amount in extra after you send them. So once a month, if you claim your active user rewards, that would result in about 5% APR. So by the end of the year, you would have 5% more Komodo than you used, but you have to claim it once a month. So you have to continually use Komodo in order to receive these rewards.
So what do you mean by sending them? Are you sending them to a Komodo wallet, or what are you saying?
Just send them at all. You can send them back to yourself, and it'll you can send them back to yourself, and it'll just give you the little bit extra. Or you can send, if you use them to say pay someone, it'll also give you that little bit extra. So
so almost like a cash back kind of. Maybe I guess. You can tell me I'm wrong. Well, what benefits? Why do you reward people for doing that?
So we were. Excuse me. We chose to reward people through this active user reward mechanism, because one of the biggest problems for people getting in, that are interested in cryptocurrency and get into it, is that, when they want to mine or to stake, they need either a massive amount of hardware or, a large chunk of coins to be able to generate anything. Where with with Komodo, you only need 10 Komodo in it to be in your wallet to actually participate in the coin generation process. So this makes the generation of coin more evenly distributed amongst the entire community, instead of in the hands of a few whales who just so happen to have a lot of hardware on hand.
Well, that makes sense. Well, I got some questions that people sent me on Twitter. Okay, so these are questions not for me. This is from the community. So the first one is, can I trade Bitcoin with margin on your exchange one day?
Okay.
That wouldn't be, or you can go ahead, Jason.
Okay, so not directly. We have recently created a system called CCPEG. So what this does is that you can create a synthetic asset based off of Bitcoin and backed as well, where you can trade. You can do margin trading with. So you can have all the effects of trading with margin, but it wouldn't actually be the real Bitcoin itself, even though it would be or could be at least back with Bitcoin. So it's more similar to like a centralized exchange margin trading, where it's it's a representative asset that is doing the actual trading instead of the Bitcoin itself. This was is done because obviously in direct consensus code there isn't a margin mechanism built in, so a custom consensus module had to be built, and a way to mimic traditional financial instruments like margin trading had to be created to be able to be done in an atomic swap system.
So eventually it will be, just not in the traditional sense that most people are used to.
Correct. Yes, it will still be margin trading like how they trade. It just will be a coin that's like think of it like a proxy Bitcoin that's backed with real Bitcoin.
Okay.
So similar to how like Waves or BitShares backs its proxy coins as well. So if that's a little bit more clear. Yeah.
Okay, so in this next question, I don't know if it has anything to do with you, but will BarterDex be compatible with Ledger Nano S?
There's no limitation there, but right now, no, it's not. I think at some point in time, it likely will be. I think that would be a very useful feature.
But is that something you guys have to set up, or is that something Ledger Nano S has to set up?
I believe we would have to work with them kind of closely, but they do have APIs that we could use. Like we have a couple different apps that use Ledger right now in our community. Not for BarterDex, but for like we have one for active user rewards, claiming them using a ledger. So I think we could do something like that.
But if they're using BarterDex, I mean, really, you don't need a nano, because you're not exposing your private keys at any point in time.
Yeah, no, you're right. But I think
so it kind of be useless, wouldn't you think, if you're using the BarterDex exchange anyways?
Well, if say you had like a compromised computer, you had a virus on your computer, and you used BarterDex without the ledger, they might be able to take your keys. But if you used a ledger, even if your computer was compromised, nothing would be able to be taken.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, so it's also for a convenience mechanism too. Many crypto users use Ledger, so we are looking into it, and there's nothing technically that prohibits it. It's just not a high priority right now for getting BarterDex up and running.
Yeah, I mean, I got a Ledger Nano. I love having it, but I just use it to store my coins. I hardly ever get on it. That's probably the smart thing to do. Well, next question: when will the mobile DEX launch?
Okay, so currently we just announced, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, the first public testing where we recruited, I believe it was like 50 to 60 testers for the mobile DEX. The iOS version is being worked on currently, and should be ready for testing within a couple months. And we hope to have both versions, Android and iOS, out by the end of the year.
Okay, so before December, sometime this year, they expect to have launch. That's awesome.
Yes, and people can participate. Like currently, the first round of testers is closed. However, we will, as the software passes this round of testing, it will be made open again to people who want to try it out and participate like in a large scale public beta. So they will be able to use it before the end of the year. It's just the official launch we're trying for at the end of the year.
There are some demos of it floating around, like videos.
Are there?
Yeah.
And is this something that's going to be on iOS and what do you call it?
Android, yes.
Android, there we go. One blanket on it. Thank you.
Yeah, so it will be on both major phone operating systems. And of course, there is a desktop version as well that is being worked on.
Yeah, I think mobile's the key. And I see more mobile wallets coming out and more stuff crypto related for mobile. To me, that's what's really going to bring in a flood of new users, is because so many people are just accustomed to using so much stuff on their phone.
Yeah, I agree. Focusing on mobile would be, I think, the way to go for now. Like, until we can do that, like, I don't think we'll really have mass adoption if you can't use crypto securely on your phone.
Okay, so I got a long question for you right here. All right, so will the Komodo ecosystem comply with specific requirements companies need to abide to get the regulatory stamp of approval defined by Europe in 2020?
Okay, so there's a couple things with this question. The first thing is Komodo itself is not a company. It's not any official organization. So any compliance requirements is upon the businesses within the community that are in those jurisdictions. So there will not be any direct compliance efforts on from Komodo, because like I said, it's not a business, so it doesn't really apply. But are the service providers that are based in the EU, I assume, will be making the necessary movements to get everything in line so they can continue business.
So you're saying it's up to the business that uses your platform to make sure they're compliant, because you're not, like you're saying, you're not a company, so they're just using your network.
Correct, and even using our network is sort of because in our system the developers build on their own blockchain, so they're running on their own network. They're not even using Komodo itself, unless it's through one of our services like delayed proof of work, and then it's not. It's still the service provider would be the one responsible for compliance.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, this is kind of like if you use the internet, I mean, that's not its own company. You have to make sure you're compliant with whatever stuff you do on the internet. Y'all aren't a company. If you're using your blockchain, that's up to the company that's using it to make sure they're compliant with all the laws in that country. Okay, so what's the inherent value of the KMD token, and how will this evolve as the community grows increasingly larger?
So are you familiar with delayed proof of work?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like we have right now, I think we have about 45 chains that are like anchored kind of into Komodo. So like they notarize to Komodo, and then Komodo after that notarizes to Bitcoin. So those chains inherit the security of Bitcoin. Like you would have to reorg Bitcoin in order to reorg one of those notarizations. So I think with more and more projects anchoring into the ecosystem, we have more and more value for the Komodo chain, because you need to use that in order to inherit Bitcoin security. But then also we have tons and tons of devs using the same code base. We have a very like collaborative effort, collaborative like focused community, to where you can usually find help with no conditions whatsoever. Someone will just help you just to help you, because they are familiar with the code base themselves. And so I think just to sum it up, I think Komodo will be like a dev powerhouse if it isn't already. Like we have probably 100 different people involved with development.
And so as more people use the network, and I know we're just kind of giving some speculation out here, but we can anticipate the price of Komodo is going to increase as more and more people get on it, more and more people use it, and more apps, blockchains are created.
Correct. Yes. As already mentioned, we currently have close to 50 here chains that are paying Komodo, because Komodo is necessary for the process of delayed proof of work to secure the blockchains. Additionally, several projects in the ecosystem like Pungo and Chainmakers and several others, they have elected to pay out rewards or dividends, depending on what type of project they are, in Komodo itself. So there will be that. As more projects do similar things, Komodo's value grows. Additionally, in the future, there will be even more mechanisms where Komodo is necessary. I mentioned briefly when we were talking about margin trading, the creation of synthetic assets. They can Komodo, will be one of the currencies that is. That you can create these, like proxy margin trading, with Bitcoin assets. So there's a lot of use potential as well with Komodo. In the future, we are also looking at side chaining different functionality onto Komodo. So currently, Komodo does not have the custom consensus modules in it. They are only on the ACID chains. However, we will be adding new chains that you will they will act as side chains. So you will burn from the Komodo chain and a new coin will pop up on the side chain, and you'll be able to use the functionality specific to that chain. And this has the benefit of essentially partitioning that feature in case there's some sort of undiscovered bug or something, so it doesn't affect the main chain. It can be isolated if necessary, as well as providing more use case for Komodo itself and as a access token.
I think one thing to note is that the reason SuperNet, or like the predecessor to Komodo, moved away from the NXT platform was because we felt limited in that we were forced to use the NXT token, and we're also saying that an ERC20 is limited because you're forced to use the ERC, or you're forced to use Ethereum for gas fees. So that's like one thing we're trying to give developers a platform they can build on without forcing them to use any token in particular.
Are there any big companies currently using the Komodo blockchain or making their own blockchains from Komodo?
We have a couple startups right now. Recently there was one that was IEO'd, was Red Fox, which is some well-involved community members and team members from the Komodo community that are they're basically trying. From my understanding, they're going to be like an incubator for different business models, specifically in Southeast Asia, I think.
Where is y'all's biggest user base from? Do you have any idea?
I would say a lot of our community is based in Europe, but also we are growing in Southeast Asia and South Korea as well. Currently, you were asking about under the radar companies. One that is that interested me from our ecosystem was it's called Zero Crypto Union. So what they're trying to do is they're forming a credit union of sorts, actually fully, federally chartered credid union, and they will be releasing certain products like bonds. They actually created a crypto-based bond called Komodo Secured Bond, which is actually backed by Komodo itself. I think they will do pretty well once they pass all the regulatory hurdles, and their team has the experience in the banking industry to do such. So I think that's one that's pretty pretty under the radar, but it could have some massive impact in the future.
That does have some massive potential, because a lot of people talk about digitalized assets, everything, every type of asset getting on a blockchain. If you already have a company, a startup trying to do that with Komodo, I mean, that's big in my book, because I think a lot of stuff, like you're saying, bonds and stocks, eventually will become digitalized at some point in time. And, what blockchain are people going to use to do it? But Komodo, they got someone building from it at this point in time. That's awesome to me.
Oh yeah, it's very, very exciting because it's a very new type of instrument, right? Right now it's the banks are just doing their first forays into exploring blockchain, and actually, and while we at Komodo are actually putting out the first products, so it's very exciting, and I agree totally. Like bonds, stocks, derivatives, you know tons of different kinds of assets, and even assets that we don't normally think of as being tradable or being commonly traded on exchanges, like scrap metals or works of art, or and things like that can be traded. And as we were talking about the atomic swaps before, not only can they be traded, they can be traded fully peer to peer with nobody in between. So it's a bright future ahead of us.
I didn't even realize that a digitalized stock and you have an atomic swap for it. I didn't even realize that. I mean, that's awesome in my book, being able to over-the-counter trade stocks. Anyone in the world could do that.
Right, and there's no broker standing in between you taking $10 a trade, or locking, freezing your assets, or it's the freedom and the power that this technology gives to the common man is it'll take a while to fully be realized, but I think it stands to change how we do, how the world is today. Like in the world in 10 years, if blockchain catches on, will be completely different than the world that we live in today.
Damn, that just hit me right there. Atomic swaps and being able to use digitize any type of asset. Damn, that's powerful.
We have we've already created the custom consensus modules to pull the price feeds of stocks and forex currencies. So we can create a synthetic stock based off of Apple or Microsoft or Tesla right now. So this isn't just speculation or stuff. It's technology that's here today.
Damn. That's awesome. That just hit me right there. I sat there and you said that. I was like, God dang, man. To me, that is the future. I think it's only a matter of time before everything becomes digitalized and, every asset's on there. Well, what are y'all's thoughts on the crypto market at the moment? You bearish, bullish? What do you think?
Oh,
yeah, I'm not much of a trader. I think if we're in the same situation we are now in 10 years, we failed miserably. Like if it's just all speculative assets, we didn't really accomplish much. You know what I mean? I'm saying in 10 years from now, if it's all just still speculative trading, I don't think we really accomplished much.
Yeah, I'm still a little bearish here. The halving, which I know is correlation, and that coin price rises after the Bitcoin halving, but that's still quite far away. That's still over a year away. A lot of the projects that are still around, they haven't released a product yet, and while they might be hurting on funds due to the crash of last year, they still haven't. They're still not tapped out yet. So I think that currently we're still in the proving grounds. We might have a little break here and there with some price rises, but I think this time period is where projects are going to determine if they live or die.
It's still building phase in your eyes, what you're saying.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that. When I invest in stuff, I get a long-term horizon. I'm looking 10, 15, 20 years down the road. So I think I agree with you guys. I think, the short term may go down. We'll see a lot of volatility. But in my opinion, Bitcoin, Komodo, over the next 10, 15 years, I think it's going to take off. So I think what you guys are building at Komodo is awesome. I mean, I think y'all got so many different things going out. People can make customized blockchains, atomic swaps, the BarterDex. It's hard for me to speculate that the price of Komodo is going to stay the same or decrease over the long term. Now, what happens in the next 6 months, who knows? But 5, 10, 15 years, I speculate it's going to be significantly higher than it is now.
Well, we are all hoping so, I guess. So, yeah, I don't think anyone in crypto will turn down a price rise. So.
Right. Well, anything else you want to add before we get out of here?
Yeah, just one thing. If for your listeners, if they would like to learn more about Komodo, feel free to join our Discord or our newsletters. We also are on Twitter, Facebook, Telegram, and we've often been called the most open community and most accessible. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop in and ask us. We're pretty available and are willing to answer any serious inquiries.
And I agree with that. It took one email for me to be able to link up with you two guys. I mean, and any question I've asked since we're scheduling this podcast has been answered. And every time I get on social media and talk about Komodo, I mean, my responses blow up. So it definitely is a very open project. And anyone interested, like you're saying, reach out to these guys because, I mean, they sure know what they're talking about. I learned more in this past 50 minutes of doing this podcast than I have in probably the past 2 months of researching cryptos and doing my thing. All right. Do you got anything you want to add before we get out of here?
Just one thing. I just want to say, if you're at all interested in getting involved with blockchain development, Komodo is a great place to do it. I was a relative blockchain noob just a year ago, and now I'm developing my own project and doing a lot of work for Komodo. My knowledge has grown so much from the Komodo community. Sorry,
go ahead.
But reach out on Discord. Check out the Tech Tuesday. Tech Tuesday is very cool. You'll see so many different interesting things. And then just reach out on Discord if you're at all interested in blockchain development.
Well, guys, I appreciate y'all coming on. I mean, I really do. And I've learned so much from this interview, and hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Yeah, sure. It was great. Thank you for inviting us. It was great being here. And anytime that you would like to have us on again, just reach out and we'll be happy to join you.
Awesome. Well, if you're listening, leave us in your feedback. If you got questions for any one of these guys, shoot me a tweet, shoot me an email, jump on their Discord, ask questions. But thanks for listening to the BlockNation podcast, and we'll catch you next time.